You know, in the 1970s, before the American food revolution all started to take place, all the pastry chefs were European chefs that were middle-aged to older, kind of overweight. And then in the 80s, when the whole food revolution started coming, a whole new generation of young people got involved in the business. And they were people that were going to school, and they might have gone to college, they might even had their PhD, they were disillusioned with what they wanted to do, and they said, I'm gonna cook. So all of a sudden you had a lot more young people in the business, and people started paying attention to fresh ingredients. People were paying attention to vegetables, they were paying attention to fish, and the whole food scene just started to exploded in the United States. In the 90s, architectural desserts started coming on, but what was more important was people and press and customers who had paid attention to the fresh produce, the fresh fish, which were all the first and second courses, all of a sudden woke up and they said, well, wait, what about dessert? You know, so it really gave dessert all of a sudden was the main focus, and everyone was paying attention to desserts and the and pastry chefs. And so that's when you really saw restaurant pastry chefs, I think, really start to take off. And then in the 2000s, we started off with, you know, bakeries and chocolate shops and bread places and such specialization that today you even have creme brulee carts. You know, there's just always something different and new that people are doing. And it's funny because when you talk to people about the future of what they want to see, and someone mentioned this earlier, a lot of things are changing and constantly changing, but there's some things that kind of go back to the beginning and they get reinvented, they get reinterpreted. Or sometimes people will pick something that they did, you know, 80 years ago, and it still hasn't been mastered. So there's that perfection that regardless of the time or the place or the people is always going to be something that is part of our past, our present, you know, and our future. So I think it's kind of something that's always being, you know, strive for, and it's something that we're never gonna get to. The first thing I want to do to start to talk about the creative is, this is one of the polls I put out there, is which pastry trend do you absolutely hate and you wish would go away and would never be on another dessert anywhere in the United States or the world?
The one that I really would love to see go is sprinkles. I agree.
So my trend is this whole unicorn thing.
I would love to see the drip cake go.
I'm going to read the answers to the poll just for human interest. And the thing I think that is actually kind of interesting about it is, one, it shows that there's a lot of space for a lot of different things, and what one person hates, another person loves, but they're kind of amusing. So fusion pastries, one product gimmicks, drip cakes, unicorn rainbow, 2 people said that. Microgreens in or on desserts, cupcakes, 2 people said that, but sorry, that's never going away. Cronuts besides Dominique Ansel. Heavily food-colored foods. Fancy versions of home-style desserts, which is kind of ironic that people would do that because it's not a home-style dessert anymore. Naked cakes, 2 people said that. Adding honey to everything, gluten-free. Adding unnecessary sugar instead of healthier options. Plating on one side of the plate. That was me, sorry, that's a big one. It's like you got the whole plate there. It's like they left half the food off. Where'd it go? Enjoy food, enjoy life. Didn't quite understand that one. Deep frying, but Callie will carry that on for the rest of it. Use of gold leaf, expensive, flavorless, adds nothing. So what are the tricks that you do that you think all of us can do that would be a way to maintain, find staff, maintain staff, and make it so, you know, we're all not just, all of us as owners and managers aren't just kind of bitching about the next generation, but trying to solve the problem?
We have 16 locations nationwide, and it can be challenging to maintain my staff because I'm not always there with them. And I like to empower, I like to instill techniques. I want them to think like I do. Treat them well, you know, like I would want to be treated. I like to run a teaching kitchen, so I'm very hands-on. I feel that when they're working alongside with me, it's a plus for them. Okay, I'm not just a number or an employee, but I'm actually working alongside my chef. And I think that's very, very important for them to feel like they have a personal relationship with me because at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like they're just getting a paycheck. They're learning from someone that they respect and that they love to be with.
We're lucky enough to create this sort of mentorship and education program for young people in New Orleans. 2 students are here right now who are in culinary school here, who will come back to New Orleans and bring that leadership, bring the knowledge, and continue to mentor people on the line level, as well as like growing into chef positions.
Another thing that we also have to create is we have to create a livable wages, and we have to pay people accordingly.
We have integrated the entire kitchen into supporting me and the desserts and all the pastries that we do.
Well, and I think, the point that you raise of you've started to work with Savory and you really make a team. How do we deal with, as pastry chefs, the role of healthy desserts? Do we have a responsibility?
It's challenging, but I don't do anything vegan. I'm sorry if you're eating for that. I will do gluten-free, that I will honor. But I think it's the individual's choice, personal choice. It's up to them to actually eat in moderation. I'm not your mother, I'm not your father, I'm not going to tell you what you need to do, and I'm not your doctor. I feel if you're going to come to me, then I'm going to feed you something that's delicious, that's made with butter, sugar, flour, eggs. And that's just my personal belief. Yes, we can use sugar alternatives, but then you have to go back to square one and figure out how the ratios are going to work properly and make sure that you're actually going to send your guest out something that you're proud of.
You said, like, should we be responsible? I think absolutely we should be responsible. Like I always say, like, pastry chefs are like glorified drug dealers, right? It's like the sugar is a drug and it's addictive and it's not good for you. And I also don't like, as I spoke earlier in the sugar alternative class, I don't really like to use the word healthy with the sugar, because regardless of what it is, maple syrup or raw local honey, it's concentrated product that is not healthy by any means. I had misfortune to be diagnosed with a Crohn's disease, right? So it was not something that was easy, like a gluten-free or dairy-free, where it's simply just one item is an enemy and you just remove it out of the diet. Like you have a disease that literally everything is an enemy that you put in your body or potentially could become down the road. Yes, maybe some people do choose to be gluten-free by choice, but there is a lot of people who are not just gluten-free or dairy-free, or have a Crohn's or other different disorders, and there's more and more people happening to have that, and more people will, because for many decades we've been eating this processed food, which sugar essentially is, and flour essentially is, and conventional dairy is, and every single thing that we do use in a pastry that's conventional is essentially a processed food. And I do believe that that's what got us to this state, and it's just going to become worse and worse and worse. And like it or not, we're going to have to think about it. We're going to have to think about having a gluten-free dessert, a dairy-free dessert, and the vegan and the seed-free and nut-free and all of this. And I've seen just in the 4 years, regardless of my change in dietary, I have seen more and more guests requesting this, and it's not going to stop. I think it's just going to get.
So you offer
more.
options,
Yes.
because you can't do dessert
Yeah.
without these things, because you'd have a steak on the plate if you took everything out of it.
Exactly. I mean, you have to look like, I'm not saying like, oh, eat sugar-free. Absolutely not. Like, it's dessert I want to eat. But let's explore some other alternatives that are not white sugar and see what we can do. And I think also pushes you as a person. I think it's a part of, the job, and being creative and innovative and learning and progressing. So
I think final thing I'd like to kind of ask everyone, if you think about not just what each person can do individually, but if we were going to kind of do something as a group, or how can we go out there? I mean, because everyone kind of came to this panel like, what is the future? What is the answer? And we're like, well, and wait, we don't really have the answer. But, what would you say that we could kind of do as a group?
I think it's important that we continue to take care of each other. And that's not limited to this room or this industry, but with the political climate, with the, at the food policy systems, everything, like, let's just take care of each other.
We just have to be ourselves.
I think you have a lot of immigrants. I think we need to stand up and say something and speak up and support people.
Making sure that everyone is taken care of, and that people have lives outside of work, and that they care about what they're doing, and that when they show up to work, they're there and they're present is the only thing that they're thinking about. And I think part of that is making sure that our work environment is a healthy, nurturing, supportive, warm, inclusive place.
Well, thank you, everybody. Now that we've solved all the world's problems in the future of pastry, I'll turn it over to Jansen.
Thank you very much for the panel. Thank you, Emily. So on behalf of the ICC, thank you so much for coming today. I really want to thank our sponsors. First of all, we have our platinum sponsors, Calabo. We have our gold sponsors, Salsa de Marley. Silver sponsors, KMT Waterjet, and our bronze sponsors, Sugarworks, and all the amazing contributing sponsors that made up this entire weekend. On top of that, the amazing ICC staff, because it was obviously not just me doing this. It was an entire team of people that contributed probably for the last 10 months making today happen, because to make this all happen in one single weekend was a lot of forces coming together. So I want to thank our advisory committee. We have Jock Torres, Emily Luchetti, Ron Ben Israel, and not present, but they were totally trying to make their weekends clear, but they couldn't, Christina Tosi and Dominique Anso. They've been really helpful for the last 10 months, my emails and surveys to them all. So thank you to them as well. I hope everyone really learned something today. We really hope that we can do things like this in the future. As I said earlier today, looking to build a community in the pastry industry, because that is really the one thing that we can do to secure the future of it. Post pictures today, share it with the world, and make a better pastry world. Thank you very much, everyone.